Choices. We have so many choices when it comes to fishing. Well, I'm going to go over today 9 lures that I use in the fall, but more importantly, I'm going to talk about when specifically I tie them on. Conditions are so varied in the fall. In the summertime, we often get in what we call the dog days, where it's bluebird skies, no wind, flat calm for what seems like weeks on end. Well, in the fall, that is definitely not the case. We can have warm, sunny days, and then 24 hours later, it can be cold and windy. So I want to go over my 9 favorite fall lures based on the conditions, and the conditions I'm talking about are going to be 100% focused on the wind. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first set of conditions is when it's very windy out. I've got 3 lures that are my go-to for this type of situation. I know that the wind is going to push those bait fish up towards the shoreline, so I'm going to fish the windiest bank that I can find. And my number one choice in that situation is to throw some sort of spinnerbait. And I say some sort of spinnerbait because I'm going to change the blades based on not only the sunshine, but more importantly, the size of the bait fish that I have. If you've got some big gizzard shad, man, I'm going with a number 7. If you have bass that they're chewing on the fry of the year or some fathead minnows, then maybe a blade like this is going to work. If I have really small bait fish, I might even throw a tiny compact spinnerbait. There's lots of spinnerbaits out there that are super short, but they're still bulky, so they're easy to throw. I might put one of those on there and of course adjust the trailer based on the situation. And if it's a real sunny day, I'm going to try to have a little bit of blue in the skirt and the trailer, because most bait fish have a translucent blue color to them as well. So that's number 1 in the heavy wind, starting off with a spinnerbait. My second lure for very windy conditions is going to be a squarebill. So you may be thinking, when am I going to choose the squarebill over the spinnerbait? This is going to get my top billing when I'm fishing rock and a riprap type of a shoreline, and usually pretty shallow. But if I'm on a body of water where the wind's cranking in the fall and it has riprap, that one right there. As a matter of fact, the bill on this lure has been beat up pretty good by pounding into the rocks. Once again, I'm going to choose the size based on the bait fish that are in the area. This here is a 2.5. I might go down a little bit, and if they're a lot bigger, maybe I'm going to go up to a 4.0. So definitely the color and the size based on the forage that is in there. But if I have tons of wind and I got riprap, I'm going with the squarebill. My first retrieve with this one is definitely going to be a burning retrieve. Squarebills work so well when burned. If that's not working, I'll go ahead and slow it down and bang it into more cover and stuff like that. But a burning retrieve, if I can get it to work, is not only good to catch those shallow fish, it will call fish up out of the depths as well. So windy day, rock, squarebill, right there. It's a good one. And the last lure that I'm going to throw on the really windy day, so I'm fishing that windy shoreline, the wind is at my back blowing into the shore, is going to be a hard suspending jerkbait. And you may think, whoa, what are you talking about? A lot of anglers save these for cold water, cold weather situations. Man, they work really well throughout the spring, summer, and fall. And in the fall, they are excellent search baits when those bass are more offshore and roaming, and you got to really try to call them up from a distance to locate where they are. A hard jerkbait is a really good lure to throw in the fall time. And just like all the others, basing the color and the size on the bait fish that are there. You've got jerk baits that are larger than this, and actually there's a lot of them on the market now and have been for a while that are a lot smaller, but they're still easy to throw in the wind. They're weighted really well, but like I said, when I'm using this, the wind is to my back and I'm investigating those shorelines where the bait fish is blowing up to it. So number 3 choice on a super windy day is a hard jerk bait. Okay, now what about those days where you've got some chop on the water? It's not crazy windy, but it's not slick calm, where the options here are a little bit wider. And I've definitely got some favorites that I like to throw in these types of conditions. If I can get away with it, if the chop is not too big, I'm going with some sort of a big walking bait like a Sexy Dog, Zara Spook, you know, something like that. I want to be able to really mimic that struggling bait fish up on the surface. And this is not only a good lure when the bass are shallow up along the shoreline, but it can also call fish from the depths. I've had wonderful days in clear water where you just see smallmouth just rocketing from the bottom to go ahead and blow up on one of these. So if there's some chop, but it's not a crazy amount of chop, definitely going to give this a shot. Then I'm going into different types of soft jerk baits. I've got a straight tail. This is a really small one here. So if there's minnows, small shad, I'm going with a small soft jerk bait. If they're a little bigger, I'll go with the traditional 4 or 5 inch size. I'll also throw your paddle tail soft jerk baits. And of course, right now, the ribbed paddle tails are very popular because they do a good job of putting a different sound signature in the water. So soft jerk baits in the fall are excellent choices. Personally, my favorite retrieve for a soft jerk bait, a straight tail, is what I call the fleeing minnow action. I'll get it up on the surface of the water and skip it. Just like minnows, when they are skipping to avoid a predator, it turns on those feeding instincts, and those bass that see it, they're like, whoa, what's going on? I want to get in on that action as well. So that's my #1 retrieve service for a soft jerkbait in the fall. But with the different plastics, the Elastec and your traditional plastic, you have so many different rigging options to hit various depths. And probably the #1 mistake we make as anglers with a soft jerkbait like this, a straight tail, is we don't alter the weight and the type of plastic enough to see what type of fall, what type of retrieve, what depth the target. We often limit ourselves to that top part of the water column with a soft jerkbait. But in the fall, boy, you can just cover all different depths with this. So really, really good bait. And then the last one that I'm going to throw when I've got kind of those in-between conditions with a little bit of chop is I'm going with the swim jig. I'm going to pull this one out first, maybe if there's pretty decent vegetation in the water, not emergent and thick, but sparse, because it just comes through that vegetation so well. And what I love about the swim jig, when I've got a nice trailer on the back, like a twin-tail grub or even a white craw, as a matter of fact, it displaces enough water and has enough resistance to it that I can fish it very, very slow. I call this my potato chip method. If I walk through the kitchen and there's an open bag of potato chips, it's too easy not to take one. I try to do the same thing with this. I want to make this such an easy meal, an easy offering, that big old bass has got to be, well, I'm not hungry, I just ate, but I can't avoid, or I can't put off this meal. I've got to attack it. And out of all the lures I've showed you so far, this one for me, traditionally year in and year out, gets the hardest and most violent strikes, which is just so much fun. 90% of the strikes in bass fishing are pretty subtle, but boy, when you get that rod yanked out of your hands, that's a good time. So this is a really good lure to throw when you've got some wind, some chop on the water. Now let's talk about those fall days where the wind stops. It's slick, calm. You got bluebird skies. What am I throwing then? These are very difficult days to go fishing in the fall. And I've got 2 choices that I'm going to really focus on. One of them is the popper, because I look at this as a finesse topwater. I can leave it sit and sit and sit and sit and sit, and I'll throw it up in areas where I got just a little bit of shade, or just hold it right by a boat dock or by a laydown tree, pop it, leave it sit. This lure just does a good job of getting the curiosity of those bass to come up and look at it, and then often when you give a little twitch, they can't resist it. So I look at this as a finesse topwater when the conditions are really, really tough. So I'm going to have this one tied on. And then this one I had just made a video on a couple weeks ago. This is this small, soft jerkbait. Again, I have it rigged on what a lot of people would call the Demiki head or Okashira type of a head. And a lot of times this presentation is just fished vertically in the wintertime, just straight down, line ties on top, and it just holds right there, okay? But in the fall, holy cow, does it do such an amazing job of just looking like a minnow sliding through or gliding through the water column. And it's just, once again, is that easy meal. I know you might not see a lot of people throwing this setup in the fall, but it works. I cannot even tell you how many bass I have caught on this on super difficult days. And the key here is this one is a Lastec. This is that baby Z2. So it has more buoyancy to it, and it helps hold it in that horizontal position, which is absolutely key to fishing it very slow. So the popper and this one are my slick water days in the fall. Works super well for me personally, and I think that you will find that out as well. Now, I have a ton of videos going over specifics on each one of these. Like, I've got a video on that little baby Z2 I talked about. I got a video on fishing the popper in the fall transition. I'll put all those links down below so you can check them out. But hey, if you want to watch one on 3 different presentations for the swim jig, go ahead and check this one out right here. And don't forget to go out and encourage someone today. You never know when you might just change their life. For the Bass Fishing Life, I'm your host, Steve Rogers.